Hi, Henry, you can begin.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Right, good afternoon, learners. This is IT Grade 11. My name is Mr. Freeman, and we're going to carry on with the next part of text files. And today we're going to read from a simple text file. So just to recap from yesterday's lesson, we discussed the copy and pos functions, as well as the insert and delete procedures, and how we can use them to manipulate strings. And then I gave you some homework to do yesterday, and it was all about the set length procedure, which I didn't cover at all. I wanted to see if you can go and find out for yourselves. And I wanted to know, how does it work, and why and where could you use the set length procedure? I hope you've managed to find some information on that, but we can look at it now. So the set length procedure, it changes the size of a string permanently. That's what it does. So you apply the set length on a string, and it changes the size to the new size that you set. So if the new size of the string is smaller than the original size of the string, then the string gets truncated at that new point. That means that if the string contains 15 characters, the current string, and the new size is set to 10, then the last 5 characters are chopped off. So the syntax for this is set length with 2 parameters. First one being a string, and that is the string whose size will change. And then the second parameter is the iNewLength, and that would be the size of the new string. So our example over here, if I have a word and I store passive in it, and I apply set length on S word, comma 4, what I do now is I permanently change, this is a procedure, so I permanently change S word, the new length now becomes 4. And because the size was 7, it now is 4, so 1, 2, 3, 4. What I'm left with in S word is pass. That. So, okay, so now we know what the set length is all about. How could we use this practically? Well, let's take a look at the following question. So the question is, delete all characters from S phrase except for the first name. Now, from yesterday, I've taken S phrase and I store in it Peter Jones, and I have to delete the space and the surname at the end and only keep the Peter. Now, we could do this with the delete procedure. We should be able to do that. So to do this with the delete procedure, that would be the syntax. Let's go through it. So delete. What am I deleting from? It's S phrase. Now I want to delete from the space all the way to the end. So the next parameter is my starting position. Now I need to find the starting position. So I use my pos function and I pass to it. What am I searching for? I'm searching for a space. Where am I searching for it? I'm searching for it in S phrase. And I think I have forgotten to just place that round bracket over there. So you just imagine there's a round bracket. So now I have my starting position. So it's going to start deleting from there. But now how many characters must I delete? Well, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But how do I tell Delphi to do that? So that's a bit complicated with a delete procedure. So what we have to do is we first have to find out what is the length of phrase. So that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So that's 11. And then we got to subtract from that, again, the pos position, which was 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 11 minus 6, that gives you 5. We just need to plus 1 because I want to delete 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And that's why I have the plus 1 at the end. And again, I'm very sorry. what's my mistake here? Can anybody see? I've got a bit of a syntax issue going on here. Any ideas? Well, it should be pos. I'm looking for the space in S phrase. Then I've got to close my brackets. That's going to return the 6. Okay, so that is 11 minus 6. Close the brackets there, plus 1. And that would then allow us to delete it. But this is quite a complicated statement to make. And here's an example of where we could use a function inside another function or procedure. Now, if we use the set length procedure to do exactly the same, we could just simply say set length is phrase. And then what's the new length? Now we simply say, okay, find pos. Find the pos position of the space in S phrase. We know that is 6 and minus 1. So it would take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 minus 1, and that's the new length, and it cuts off the space in Jones, and you've got exactly the same outcome using it with a much easier way of doing it. If you can use the set length. Again, you don't have to use it. You don't need to know it. You can do it all with the delete procedure, but possibly when it comes to exam situations and you only have so much time to solve your problem, then this could come in handy. Okay, well, that was yesterday's homework. I hope you all understand that. Now for today's lesson, what we're going to do is we're going to firstly create a simple text file, and we're going to populate it with a couple of names. And then we're going to use Delphi to open this text file. From there, we're going to read from the text file. And while we're reading it, we're going to display the text in a memo. So all the names that are on the text file will then be displayed or read from and displayed in our memo. So firstly, let's look at a text file. So what is a text file? Those of you who don't know, a text file contains simple text, no formatting like you would find in Word or PDFs. It's just a bunch of ASCII characters stored in a file. So there's no formatting, no bold, no underline, nothing like that, just plain text. Thirdly, text files can be used by many different programs to store or transfer data between different programs or systems. So when I have one program and the one program needs to communicate with another system, could be in the same network, it could be over a WAN on the other side of the country or the world. If I need to export data from one system to the other, we often use text files because it's so easy to read. There's no formatting. I can export from the one program and import from the other program again. Most text files have the .txt file extension. Our file extension is that second part of a file name. And the operating systems, they just use the file extension to know which program to open if you double click on the file. So it makes a whole list of file extension associations. If we look at Microsoft Word, your operating system, if you installed Microsoft Word, it will have a association, all docs and docx's. If you double click on a file like that, it's going to open Word and then try and read the text file. And you can actually go and test that. If you take, for example, a PDF, and our PDF document has got the .pdf at the end. If you change that file extension to .docx and you double click on it, Word is going to try and open it, but it will fail because it doesn't understand the data inside it. So text files use the .txt file extension. That is standard, but nothing stops you from using your own file extension. Just be careful, although your program may be able to open it, your operating system may not know what to do with it because it won't necessarily know your caret file extension that you've created for yourself. So Now that we know what a text file is, there's a number of ways to create these text files. And one way is to simply open a text editor. Now in Windows, the default text editor is Notepad, but there are many different text editors out there. So you can simply open Notepad and type your text and save that as a .txt file. That's the one way. The second way is if we use the Delphi code editor, and that's what we're going to do in our example today, or your RAD Studio. And in the third way is by creating a text file purely using code. Now, after we've created this text file, it's important to know where to place this text file so that our program knows where to go and find it if it wants to open it. Now, the older Delphi versions, the Delphi versions before 10.3, required that we save the text file in the same folder as the project. Now, since Delphi 10.3 and the one that I'm using is 10.3.3, you have to save your text files. Well, not have to, but it will look for it by default. Inside the project folder is a Win32 folder, and inside that folder is a debug folder. So inside the debug folder, we have to place our text file. Okay. So we're going to use the Delphi code editor, and we're going to follow these steps now. So we're going to start off by creating a new project. So I haven't created a project at all. I hope you can all see my RAD Studio. Just shout if you can't. So I'm going to start off by creating a new project. So I'm going to say File, New, Windows VCL Application. And I'm going to start off by saving the project. I'm going to put it here in this folder, today's lesson. I'll create a new folder called Reading Text Files. And I'm going to place it in here. So what am I saving now? I'm saving my unit. So read text file _u. And now I'm going to be saving my project. So I'll call that read text file _p. Okay. So we got our new project. Now we're going to create our text file, and we do that by going to File, New, Other, and then Other File. I don't know what happened there, so it's Other File, and in the text file, and okay, let's see if we can find that. So File, New, all the way at the bottom, Other, and then there's another Other at the bottom, and there's my text file. Now we have to say, what is the file extension? Again, you can type any extension you want, but I'm going to use the .txt, the standard one. And I'm going to say, okay. So there's my text file. So let's add a few names. So it's going to be Jack, Phil, Peter, Christopher, Simon, Sally, Jackie. Right, so there's my names. Now, before I save this, when I save this, I need to now save that in my debug folder. But I've just created this project now. So if you go to where the project is saved, I think it was that one, there's my project, but I don't see my Win32 or my debug folder. And that is because it only gets created after the first time the program is run. So if I go back to my project over here and I run it, it's going to open a blank form with nothing in it yet. If I now go back to my folder, I now suddenly see the Win32 folder. And inside there the debug. So let's go back to our program. I'm going to go to new, my text file, and I'm going to say save. I'm going to give it a name called names, and I'm going to place it inside my Win32 and debug. And now I can save it. Now again, it's important to stress, if you're using the old version of Delphi, then you wouldn't have to do that. Then you just simply place it in your project folder. Okay, let's go back here. So I've created a new project. I've created my text file. We've selected the .txt as the file extension. Type the text and save the file. We've done that, and we've entered a name for the text file. So now it is all created. It is there, ready for us to use. Now we're going to read from the text file. So I think the first thing I've got to do right now is go back here and give this form some functionality. So I'm going to add in a button and give it a name. Read text file. And the caption, I think it is a caption. And we're just going to do this. Okay, so I've got my text file over there, and we're going to create a memo. And my memo is going to be mem output. And I will, where's that mem output text? It's under lines, I think it is. So lines, t-string, I'll just go and remove all of that. Okay, so there's my standard, very, very simple, basic interface. I'm not going to waste too much time here. So let's read from the text file. So the idea is I'm going to hit the button over here. It's going to read from the text file and display in our memo or mem output. All right, so step number one. So we can display the contents of the text file in one statement. And what is that one statement? So it says that we can do mem output dot lines dot load from file, and then you give the file name. So let's see if that works. I'm going to create my event. So we said mem output dot, what was that? Lines dot load from file. So lines dot load from file, and we give the file name. And I called it names. Don't forget the file extension at the end. So that's what it says we've got to do here. Simple as that. So let's try that. So I'm going to run it. And hit the button. And there's my text. Simple. Well, if that is all it was, then my lesson would have ended right now, but it's not as simple as that. Why? Okay. It's easy to use. This one, like this load from file statement, it's very easy to use, but it is limited in function because all I can really do is take the text from the text file as is. I don't know how it was put together, and I take all of that and I place it in the memo without anything that I can do. Now, I understand that this text file only has a list of names. So if you wanted to display the list of names as is in your memo, then this would have been fine, but it doesn't remain as simple as that. So I'm going to change this, and I'm going to say, no, we're not going to use this type. Add a comment here. That's the basic one-line statement. And we're going to rather focus on advanced file reading. Okay, well, let's call that text file reading because there's a difference there. You get different types of files. So over here, so let's see. So that was reading from a file. Oh, and here's another one. I can also save whatever's in the memo back into the text file. So nothing stops me from going to my text file, going to my memo after I've run it and altering the names and then hitting a write to text file button using that one statement. What it will do is if you use the names.txt as your parameter, it will overwrite the text file with the new names, the changes. If you use a new name, it will actually create that text file. So I want you to listen very carefully because this over here, this mem output.lines.save to file, and then my file name parameter. This is something that I'm going to ask you to do for homework today. So please take careful note of this. Right, so let's do the more advanced reading from a text file. And the reason why we're going to do that is we're not going to end off the exam at the end of the year asking you to read a bunch of names. We're going to make it a little bit more difficult. So you're going to have to use a little bit more advanced functionality. And in tomorrow's Friday lesson, I will show you how to read from a more complicated text file than what we're doing today. Okay, so the first thing that we have to do is we have to declare a new text file object. And we do that by in variable, in the var section, we give our file a name. Now, this is not the text file. This is the text file object that we are going to create in Delphi that will eventually link to the actual text file. So this variable name becomes a text file type. Same with the normal string variable. I would say sword of type string. Now I'm saying my T file, if I want to call it that, of type text file. Okay, so I do that over here. So under var, obviously you got to just be careful where you declare this object, because if you're only going to have one button, like in our case over here, it's fine to declare it locally. But if you're going to have multiple buttons, then it's maybe not a bad idea, or maybe you'll have to then do it over here, which is the global part. But I'm just going to do it locally. So I'm calling my file object T file, and it's of the type text file. Now, again, don't make the mistake that you think you got all this knowledge now and you're going to remember it. If you don't practice it, you're going to get into the exam and you're going to think, okay, T file, what was that type again? What was that type again? And if you type file, it actually gets file. I don't know why I put the and over there. It allows that, but this won't work. And your program won't run, your file won't be read, and you'll struggle with your syntax at the bottom here. You're going to think, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing wrong? While all the while you declared it as the wrong type. So just make sure you remember and study and practice. So it's a text file type. So declared that. So there it is. Next step is I'm going to assign the text file object to an actual text file. Now, what that basically means is, yes, I've got my text file object over here, but how do I know which text file is going to open? It's not just going to, what if you have 10 text files sitting there? It needs to be associated with a specific file name. And that's what the assign procedure does. Okay, so it looks like this. It's assign file. And first parameter is what is your file object, your text file object, comma, what is the name of the actual text file. Now just note that this procedure over here doesn't actually go and open the text file yet. It just makes an association. It just says, from now on, if I do something with T file, I will be doing something else with my file.txt. I haven't opened it yet. Okay, so let's do that now. First thing is I'm going to say assign file, right? What is your file object? It's tfile. And what is the name of your text file? It's names.txt. Right. Next step. Now we're going to actually open the text file. And the procedure that we use for that is the reset procedure. Now, the reset procedure takes one parameter, and that is my file object. Now, the reset procedure does two things. Firstly, it opens the text file. And secondly, it places the cursor right at the beginning of the text file, being ready to start opening or reading one line at a time. So those are the two things. So after you've done your reset, you'll now be in a position where I can start reading my text. So next thing is we're going to now loop through all the lines of text. So firstly is while not end of file. I see there's somebody there with their, okay. Let's start again. So loop through all the lines of text. So we're going to use while not end of file tfile. Now end of file EOF, that is a function that returns a Boolean, either true or false. And what it basically does is at any point where the cursor is, if I ask end of file, it's going to currently return false because I'm not at the end of the file yet. Only over here will I get an answer of true. Okay, so I am going to say, while not end of file, while I have not joined the end of the file, I'm going to carry on doing the following stuff. Okay, so while not end of file, which file? Tfile. Okay. So what are we going to do inside the loop? Well, we're going to read each line inside the loop one at a time. And we do that with the procedure read line. So what it does, it takes two parameters. What am I reading from? Because you may have more than one file object. And then what must I do with that string, that first line, this first line over here? What must I do with it? Where must I save that string? And we need to save it in some variable. Okay, so read line, tfile, I just called it sline. So firstly, we have to create that variable. Okay, there it is. I'm going to say read line or read lin. Okay, what am I reading from tfile into sline? So what I've just done now is I basically said, read the entire line, return it, place it into sline, and then the final step is go to the next line. That's what happens. Okay. So now that I got that line in sline, I want to display that line in the memo, and you all know that that's mem output.lines.add, and what am I adding? I'm adding the sline. Right. So, and I'm going to keep on doing this until I reach the end of the file. And once I reach the end of the file, that will become true because I've reached the end of the file, but the not makes it false, which means I exit my while loop and I sit over here. Okay, well, what's left to do? Well, after the loop, and specifically after the loop, in other words, after you've done with this text file, always, always, always close the text file. And we close it with close file procedure. So we say close file, and what am I closing? And there's two important reasons why you need to do this every single time and never forget. And the first reason is because usually there's a mark allocated for that. So if you forget it, you don't get the mark. If you do, you do get the mark. But for practical reasons, is if you open a text file, it uses resources. And it keeps on using that resource until you close your file. Now, this little program over here, it's probably not going to make a big difference. It will still run, and that's why many people forget to close it, because they don't realize that the program just carries on. But if you have to create a huge program that creates thousands of text file objects every minute for an hour, and you don't close them, your resources are going to fill up very, very quickly. So always remember to close the file. Okay, so let's see what happens if I run this. So I'm going to hit my read text file, and there they are. Exactly the same as this basic liner, but I've got more functionality because I can do more things inside my while loop. Okay, so that was quite quick. So I want you to now, for homework, and this is important that you practice this, because I want you to create your own Delphi project, the same way I did it all now, and then create your own text file. You don't have to use names, you can use whatever you want. But I want you to then actually go and practice that and read this text file into a memo. And then I want you to add that line, add another line of your text in your memo. So I want you to actually then go and do the following. I want you to do this, read your text file in here, and start changing stuff, adding new names, deleting one of the names, etc. And then I want you to create another button over here called Write to Text File. Now we'll get to the complicated or more advanced version of writing to text files, but if you can remember, use that one-line procedure or statement that I've shown in the beginning of the lesson. Later on, I'll have a more advanced topic on how to write your text files to write them to another text file. So you could either create a new text file or append to a text file or overwrite the text file. There's lots of commands that you can use, but probably towards the end of next week when we get to that. All right, so I would like you to do that now, please, while you still have time and while everything is still fresh in your memory. So tomorrow, we will read a text file with what we call delimiters. And here's an example. I don't know if I'm going to use that yet. Sounds a bit boring, but let's see. So an example would be if I have name and some delimiter character. Over here, I use the hash. So name, hash surname, hash age, and then hash gender. And then what we're going to do every single line. So in my while loop, we are going to split these tokens. What are tokens? Tokens are these things over here. So the actual, that would be John Smith, 17, male, and so on. So we're going to get each one of these tokens and store them in variables. And then we are going to create a rich edit with 4 columns, and we're going to display these names, surnames, age, and genders in 4 columns in my rich edit. And maybe we can do a bit of bold and underline and add some headings to that. So that's what we're going to do tomorrow. And tomorrow's lesson is where we're going to combine, we're going to bring together yesterday's lesson of the string manipulation, and we're going to combine it with today's lesson where we read from a text file. I'm going to add in tomorrow a bit of defensive programming. Your reset procedure is quite a dangerous procedure, because if I reset T file, remember now from the beginning of the lesson, reset opens the file based on the file name, or based on that assignment that we've done with assign file, and it attempts to open the file. But what if that file, what if that text file is not there? Well, if that happens, then the program crashes, and you don't want that. So we're going to apply some defensive programming techniques tomorrow as well, where we're going to say first, before we attempt to reset, we're going to say, okay, first check, after I've assigned my file, check if this file actually exists. And if it doesn't exist, we are going to send some message saying, oops, sorry, file not found, please try again. And if it does exist, we will carry on with the rest of that procedure, rest of that event, and start resetting and getting all the text out of the text file into our 4 columns. All right, guys, thank you very much. That is all for today. You've got a couple of minutes to try and make your own program. And if there are no questions, have a lovely day.
Hello, Henry.
Hi,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, excellent.